Hi and welcome to Watercolor with Sonia. Today we are going to work on a portrait of a small girl. Her name's Rachel. She's not small anymore, but at the time that this photo was taken it was small. And we're going to start with her background of her hair. And just going to show you an image of her so you can see what she looks like. 1 second here. Okay, so this is her hair up here, kind of goldeny and a little bit of burnt sienna and stuff, and then that's her face. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is a little bit of raw sienna, but I have to wet the hair a bit here first. So wetting it around, this is the raw sienna. I'm keeping the background plain at the moment. Getting a little bit, so I know you can see this easier because it's all wet. I'm using a round brush at the moment, trying to get some of those wisps in. So we're going to start with the raw sienna and just put in some nice highlights. Now we could put in a lot lighter. I'm just trying to take some pigment directly from my brush and the tube paint and just pop it in there. Thinking about just the wisps of hair. Yellow ochre could also be used. This is yellow ochre. You see this a bit goldeny. Raw sienna seems to be a little bit on the more brown side. These are Daniel Smith colors. There we are. Down here a little bit, coming around. A little bit darker in the back here. We could also use a little bit of the new gamboge that we have, which is a little bit more on the yellow side. Here's the yellow. But again, leaving in the lights will help tremendously to highlight, and then we're going to put some brown in the center here. Burnt sienna, actually. It's a little darker around here, down by her area there, and then down here a bit too. Let's see if we can pull some of that over here. Now we can lift a little bit and let this dry a little bit too. So I'm going to now put in the burnt sienna and just prop that in here. Now to make that burnt sienna a little bit darker if we need to, it's quite wet there. We can add a little bit of blue or just go to a burnt umber, which I happen to have here. Maybe that's just more burnt sienna, just a little drier. So the best thing would be just adding a little bit of blue. And I was just looking to see where my blue is. Oh my. So we could use phthalo blue, or we could use cobalt blue, and I think I was suggesting a cobalt blue as the blue of choice. So I have my cobalt blue, and I'm just seeing how it suddenly just darkens that whole brown area up here. So don't get too over enthusiastic, but you kind of get that feeling. And now I'm just going to add a little bit more of the burnt sienna. It's more the shadow of the camera and where she was in relation to the lighting, which is hard because it was indoors in a dark environment, which makes it harder to quite get those highlights. And for just a little bit of extras here, just a little bit more yellow ochre, maybe even a smaller brush if necessary, just to pop those wisps in there. You can even use a little bit more of that cobalt blue. It might turn a little green though. To be careful of that. And here we need a little bit more shadowing in there, right by your ear here. And it's pretty blondish around that area here. Same here. And darker on the back here. So again, I'm going to go back in with a little bit more burnt sienna and some of my cobalt blue. Darken that up around here a bit more. And we can come back and again darken it even further. Let this dry a bit. Alright. So the next thing I'd like to try is some of the facial features. Now she's quite light skinned, so a good mixture for that is rose madder and new gamboge. So there's my rose madder, and then adding in a little new gamboge, we get quite a nice orangey pinkish color. We don't need a lot because most of the shadowings are down in this area, a little bit on the ear. So we can bring it in and then soften it totally around most of the face area. Get that in there, nice and light around. Right into the, she's quite light underneath the chin. Right over the lips, that's no problem. Okay. And now we're just going to add a bit more of the rose madder and blend that into her cheeks area. Same over here. She has a lot more just in that lower area. We'll soften that up there. We're going to bring it down here and right along the edge of her chin. Some shadow underneath this area, which we'll pick up in a minute. And there's some nice shadowing right around her area there. What I'm talking about is really more of her eyebrow area. And that was more of viridian. And I was talking about Janine Helton, sorry, who uses viridian very lightly in some of these areas to just capture in just little bits of circle to get just little ideas of that. I've got too much, that's too much green right there. To get much lighter. Just these little bits that she puts in to kind of get that shadowing going. Right in the base here. A little bit more, whoops, that's too much. Get that in there a bit. Eyes around a little bit like that. There's more shadow in there. So we're just using a little bit of green and a little bit of the rose madder just to touch up some of the brows area and the eye area. And need a little bit more coloring on the nose. And so now we're going to use a little bit more of that mixture of rose madder and new gamboge and get some a little bit more shadows in there. And then we can pull that up a bit more in here with her eye, or especially her eye area in here. Definitely it's much more dark. Not so for the ear, there's just a few little bits there. We can definitely darken the cheek a little bit more. Add a little bit more of the green if we need to. Just in that area there. Just looking for the shadow in here a bit. base of the nose, a bit of the mouth, just in between here, a little bit of the lip. Now we can take that rose madder and we can certainly use it nicely on her lips. Now she has some white right in there. Now this is a bit too wet here right now, so I'm going to just soften that off and pull it out. Blend it into the rest of her facial area. She's got more on that side too. Okay. And we're back, and while the camera was getting a little bit of extra juice, I went in and added first some green into the eyes, and then some burnt sienna, and then eventually some Payne's gray a couple of times to get into the eyes. I also added more of greens and browns into her nose area, and then even added the lips, which I found I needed to add a little bit of viridian in there too to get some of the neutrals in the top and the bottom of the lip, because it was looking too pink and not really natural for that area that kind of, she just turns up just a little bit in some areas and just a little bit of shadow even there. And then there's a little bit of shadow going up, not so much just on the base of the lip a little bit. I was adding in some more pinks. I added in some green up in the hair. You could certainly add a little bit more burnt sienna up here to capture some more of that darkness in the coloring of the hair, layering each time, helping to get those nice tones in there. And it will take a few times to get some nice highlights and to integrate them so that they kind of fall the way her beautiful hair fell and with the different tones. And you could keep blending them a bit too, especially in the back corner there. Eventually getting some of the nice darks right down into the side. And just in the here by the ear. And again, just a little bit of shadowing around the same kind of coloring around the edge of the face and into the collar. So now for the actual blouse, you just need a little bit, and I'm just going to show you quickly again for the eye, just a little bit of viridian and gray, just where that eye pupil would be, right in there. Now, simple to do the blouse as well. I'm just looking for my picture again. You don't need a lot because it's mostly white, and so there's just a little bit of shadow in the collar and things. So you can take a little bit of that shadowing, just drop it in there a little bit. That may be a little bit too dark, but just grab that and just add in some of those little points in there. And then it just kind of tapers down here a bit, comes down with the apple. And there's a little bit more shadow on this part of the collar. And just on the edge, actually, coming through. So let's add a little bit of that. Right on the edge here, like that. Right in there. Same over here. And there's a bit more just shadowing just along here. A little bit of shadowing here. Let's add a little bit of water to that. And get that to come down where this shirt is. And we have a little shadow in here. I'll soften that up a bit here. And a little bit of shadow coming just around here a little bit. And some more, quite a bit of shadow actually over here, so we can pick up some of that, or just take a little bit more of what we've got. This is Payne's gray and a little bit of viridian. And then a few little pieces just along here, just even a little bit up, a little bit, tidy it up there. Now, if you were going to do the background, I would consider the viridian and the gray, adding a little bit back in here to get the, you know, the nice dark there. So now you're getting a little bit more of that feeling of, whoops, sorry about that. Let's try it again. A bit of that gray coming in here to cover some of the area of the hair. Or you could also go with a darker viridian, breaking that in here, and see if that gives you. Now, when I mentioned Deneen Halton, she definitely had a more minty kind of green that she used in her background. I just thought it'd be interesting to show you a little bit of background there. Oh, there we go. And what that can do to bring out the image. I'm just going to soften that up and then taper that over to the other side. Okay, and then we have our little girl. So we'll try that out tomorrow.